This is not your typical tourist stop. For centuries, this arid desert land belonged to the Tikaboo Indians. According to their ancient legends, it was sacred ground, home to the sky gods, the Thunderbirds. These days, the Thunderbirds have wings of steel and titanium skins. Their home, a high-tech military test site. Test site so super secret, people travel from all around the world hoping they may pierce even one of its mysteries. Join us now as we journey to Area 51. The megawatt glamour of Las Vegas entices millions every year. But for many visitors, Vegas is only a stopover along the way to their final destination. Some determined tourists drive 150 miles northwest to a place that has no gambling, no fantastic floor shows. But this unusual travel destination offers something even Las Vegas doesn't have: an incredible mystery. Fantastic claims of alien spaceships that draw tourists here year-round.
It's the intrigue that brings me out here.
It's called The Box, the Watertown Strip, Paradise Ranch, Red Square, Groom Lake, Dreamland, and Area 51.
It's a huge area northwest of Las Vegas in Nevada that was described by one writer as the place where the government goes to be alone. This is where they put their deepest, darkest, and blackest projects.
It's just locked off, it's fenced off, you can't go there, forget it.
Hardly the ideal tourist attraction, Area 51 is freezing cold in winter and blazing hot in summer. To give you an idea of how much rain it gets, Nevada's state flower is sagebrush.
It really looks like Mars or the backside of the moon.
1, 2, 3.
Nevertheless, people come from all over the world to stare at this bleak landscape, trying to catch a glimpse of its mysteries.
This place has such a great reputation, being, you know, all that UFO stuff and aliens and all military, secret military operations and all that. So it's just interesting. I wanted to see that.
Don't expect a welcome wagon. Top secret Area 51 is part of an enormous military complex, a region the size of Connecticut. It includes Nellis Air Force Base and the nuclear test site where the U.S. detonated A-bombs in the 50s.
Now, the military apparently refuses to acknowledge that Area 51 exists. It's just so secret they don't want to talk about it.
Dr. Tom McDonough is a senior scientist of the Skeptics Society and coordinator of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence at the Planetary Society, the international organization founded by astronomer Carl Sagan. Even McDonough can't get much official information on Area 51.
All that the government will admit publicly is that there's an area where civilians are not allowed to go.
Area 51 is the largest restricted area in the country. No unauthorized entry by land or air. Trespassers can be fined, even imprisoned. Orange poles marking the perimeter and signs posted at every entrance make it clear: do not enter Area 51. Sophisticated video cameras watch your every move. They may even have ammonia sensors sensitive enough to detect the difference between a human and a cow. All backed up by what are known as camo dudes, private security guards in camouflage uniforms. You step over the line, you're theirs.
not exactly private, they're not exactly military, we don't really know who owns it or runs it. You know, that's the big mystery of the base. And of course it adds to the mystique as to why the place has become so famous.
Only government officials know exactly when Area 51 came into being or who authorized it. Although it is impossible to verify, many people think the United States government set up shop at Area 51 sometime in the late 1940s or early 50s to develop technology and weapons. Secret black projects to fight the Cold War with Russia.
The whole point of a black project is that the other guy doesn't know what you're doing. You may be able to leapfrog technology. Suppose you develop a new way to detect something in the sky. You don't want anybody to know about that, because then the other guy will try to do it.
Security's probably tight at Area 51 because they're testing aircraft that are so far advanced beyond anything that the rest of us know about that they don't want anybody else to know about them, namely our enemies, as well.
Michael Shermer authored the book The Borderlands of Science and is the publisher of Skeptic magazine. He believes that threats to national security require that military sites like Area 51 remain a closely guarded secret.
It's true we're not in a Cold War situation anymore, but we have enemies. And if anything, it's actually more unstable now than it's ever been. Instead of having one large enemy whom we watch very carefully, now there's a lot of stealthy enemies that it's more difficult to track. So national security is more important than it's ever been.
Security at Area 51 is so tight, some UFO authors and enthusiasts speculate that employees are ordered not to talk to anyone, ever.
It's very serious. The secrets are kept under lock and key.
The general cloak of secrecy successfully kept Area 51 off the public radar for decades. No one but desert rats paid much attention to it. Then, in late 1989, people started coming to Area 51 by the busload because of an incredible story that drew heated criticism as soon as it became public. The story was told by this man, Bob Lazar. He claimed he was a physicist, had worked inside Area 51, and that he saw 9 spaceships of varying sizes, crafts he claims were clearly alien in origin.
Absolutely alien craft, there's no question about it.
Stories about Area 51 and possible alien technology there had been floating around for as long as I had lived in Las Vegas, but there had never been any thorough investigation, primarily because no one who had inside knowledge of the program had ever been willing to talk about it publicly, until Bob Lazar.
It was a very sleek, thin-looking, flying saucer-shaped craft. Kind of hard to describe without drawing it, but kind of a typical flying saucer shape.
Lazar also alleges he saw one of the saucers in flight.
It made a slight hissing sound, a slight blue glow from the bottom, probably due to the extreme voltage that's present on the craft. After a short time, that disappeared as it rose, and it lifted off and just gently glided and later sat down. It was very uneventful, but almost totally silent.
One night, Lazar claims he took a few friends out to the Area 51 perimeter to watch secret test flights of the spacecrafts, violating his security oath. His friends that night have never surfaced, and the story cannot be verified, but Lazar says they were caught. After that, he says he had no choice but to go public.
And my immediate reaction was, why would he be allowed to talk so freely, so publicly, about a facility that doesn't exist, and then let alone about captured alien technology?
And I think the reason he was willing to talk to me, at least what he told me in the beginning, was he was trying to save his hide. He figured by going public that they wouldn't dare do something to him.
Skeptics note that the federal government never prosecuted Lazar, something they presumably would have done if he had violated the security oath he allegedly signed in order to work at Area 51.
When Bob Lazar went public, of course, it created a huge storm of controversy, and there were immediately a lot of skeptics and debunkers who tried to say that he, was just full of prunes.
For instance, Lazar's resume included another top-secret facility, the Los Alamos Laboratories in New Mexico. Los Alamos officials repeatedly told Las Vegas television reporter George Knapp that Lazar had never worked there. Knapp claims, however, that he found evidence to the contrary.
Well, eventually we came up with a lot of indications that Bob did work there. We found, for example, the newspaper from Los Alamos that lists him as being a physicist from the lab. We found the laboratory telephone book that lists him as being an employee at the lab. We have talked to other people at the lab who worked with him, who tell us that Bob did work on classified projects, that he was a physicist, that he was there.
I've spent a lot of effort trying to check on Bob Lazar.
UFO believer and former nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman, who's made a second career out of investigating UFO-related stories, thinks Knapp was conned. His own research indicates Lazar is not at all who he claims to be.
Unfortunately, when you start checking on the credentials, they don't check out at all. No attendance at MIT, no attendance at Caltech. I talked to his high school, he was in the bottom third of his class. It doesn't check out at all. It's science fiction history.
Well, here's the problem in trying to track down somebody's credentials and they don't appear, and then he says, well, of course, because it's top secret and they buried my file or whatever. Well, then how can we ever get to an answer to this question? We can't.
Now it becomes subjective, and it's up to your individual mindset. And if you want to believe that there's aliens and UFOs at Area 51, then you believe Bob Lazar. If you don't want to believe that, then you don't believe him.
There's a lot of doubt as to whether Bob Lazar is who he claims to be. But there's no doubt his story helped draw tourists to Area 51. It now attracts thousands of people every year. Before 1989, the top-secret military test site known as Area 51 attracted little more than avid aviation buffs and buzzards. But then Bob Lazar's sensational claims of UFOs brought international attention to the place. Area 51 was suddenly UFO Central. Sean Morton, a UFO enthusiast, writer, and entrepreneur, organized busloads of people for campouts at a place called Freedom Ridge.
We would climb around the back of these hills and then go up the back of the hills up to the very peak of Whitesides Mountain. And the top of Whitesides Mountain would give us a perspective that could literally look right down the throat of the Groom Lake Area 51 facility.
From there, they could see the landing strips on Groom Lake's dry bed, and they claim, witness many bizarre sights.
You could actually go out and see discs that were actually doing incredible maneuvers, that were skipping across the sky, that were disappearing and reappearing within the blink of an eye.
When Area 51 security discovered watchers on the lookouts, the government confiscated land around the mountaintops, cutting off access to the closest vantage points.
And the reason is that there were so many Area 51 buffs who were parking out on the edge of Area 51, going up on top of hills with cameras and telescopes and binoculars spying on Area 51, that this was defeating the whole purpose of having a secret military base. So they expanded the perimeter to make it much, much harder for anyone to spy on what they're doing.
It's funny, the best pictures you can buy now are ones taken from a Soviet satellite.
The satellite photos show the dry bed of Groom Lake in the north and Papoose Lake in the south. The long landing strips are easily discernible, as well as a collection of single-story buildings and at least one enormous hangar. Many military installations contain working underground structures, which could also be true at Area 51.
I would imagine that the real secret stuff really is, for the most part, taking place underground, because the problem today is spy satellites. There are so many countries that have spy satellites that orbit overhead, and as long as that's a fact, then you have to deal with it, and what you do is you put as much as possible your experiments underground.
Whatever the military may have done to secure the secrets at Area 51, avid UFO watchers say the mysterious sightings continue. Their stories can't be verified, yet they claim to see strange objects in the sky.
My niece and I watched a craft in the sky one night. We actually put it on the clock on a watch for over 10 minutes. The maneuvers that the craft did were very fast, up and down, sideways, and in very tight maneuvers.
Chuck Clark is a photographer who makes his living shooting photographs of the stars in the skies above the Nevada desert. Despite gazing at the heavens for a living, he has never photographed a UFO, but he claims he once caught a glimpse of something over Area 51. He thought it was a flare, but alleges it may have been something more.
It was nearing the ground, and I figured, well, it's going to start a fire, and security's going to have to come out and put this out. It'll be good for a laugh. And suddenly the thing just streaked off, covered just under 5 miles right along the base of the hills in about a second to a second and a half, stopped instantly, hovered for a few more seconds, and then vanished.
Local resident Don Day claims he first saw a strange light in 1998, a bright orb that seemed no more than a few miles away.
We stopped the car, got outside, there was no sounds whatsoever. It changed to a yellow and orange tint quite a few times. And we watched it for about 15 minutes, and then it went back over the mountain, over Bald Mountain, back into Area 51 Groom Lake area.
In late 2000, Day and his wife allege they saw several similar orbs.
We saw 3, I would say, kind of round type looking orbs. Almost looked like satellites, but they were not satellites. I looked at them through binoculars. They were changing colors from blue to red to orange, white. Then they started shooting like lasers in between each other, like they were bouncing them off each other. We watched this for over an hour and a half.
LaRae Fletcher was working graveyard shift one night guarding military equipment out in the desert when she alleges she saw a bizarre object.
It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was very quiet, of course. My partner is sitting across the valley from me, about 7 miles away. We use our headlights just to let each other know we're okay and awake. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see these lights in the air, and it is a huge, huge object. This object was diamond-shaped, and it had what looked like strobe lights. And of course, I'm watching it and don't know what it is, and still don't know.
whatever it was, Lorraine claims it was as big as half a football field. Over the years, she's run into a lot of people who doubt her story, but she doesn't budge on a single detail.
I just tell them, seeing is believing. You believe what you want to. I know what I've seen. And you believe what you want to.
People see weird things in Area 51 because there probably are a lot of weird things being flown around out there. I mean, unidentified flying objects, if we just take it literally, I'm sure there's lots of them. If we know now about the stealth bomber, and if you've ever seen this thing, it is really spooky to see it fly overhead. It looks like a hole in the sky. It's strange looking. If that's what we're allowed to know about, imagine what the technologies must be that we are not allowed to know about. Surely people are seeing unidentified flying objects, but they're very terrestrial.
Want to check it out for yourself? Top-notch skywatching. Where to get the best views of mystery sightings. There's a lot of nothing out here in Area 51 country, but there is also a little bit of down-home America. Rachel, Nevada. It's not much to look at. Just a hodgepodge collection of double-wide trailers, RVs, satellite dishes, and propane tanks. It's got one gas station, one restaurant, and one motel, but it's also got one big draw. It's the town closest to Area 51, the only place west of Las Vegas where you can eat, sleep, get gas, and buy little alien souvenirs.
An alien driver's license, what do you think?
Well, we've got alien, some kind of hat, kettle like that. And we've got the Area 51 cap. And a stack full of t-shirts for every kid in the neighborhood.
Everybody say abduction. Abduction. Yeah.
Some might call Rachel, Nevada a textbook example of the middle of nowhere, but local residents don't agree.
No, we don't say the middle of nowhere. We say the middle of everywhere. That nowhere doesn't get it.
In 1965, Faye Day and her husband were the first to move here, back before there was a town. Now the tiny community boasts a population of about 100.
We do have some that work at Area 51, but they don't tell us what they do.
Like most of the residents, Faye takes their proximity to the most top-secret base in the country very much for granted.
We see a lot of interesting sights here. Whether or not they're UFOs, I don't know. But they're interesting to watch.
There are, however, a few clues that this is no ordinary town. How many main streets feature a radiation monitoring station?
This equipment measures the radiation that is in our valley that people are afraid might drift over from the test site. We had a practice run, 3 or 4 years ago, in case they did find it above normal. And a fella came in the store and asked me how long it would take me to get out of town. And I said, let me get my cat and my husband and I'll be gone. I won't have to be told but once. But that has never happened. We've never had to leave.
Faye and her family run the Quick Pick, the closest thing to a grocery store for miles. But this is no ordinary mini-mart.
No, we aren't just any mini-mart. We're interested in Area 51 and what they do, and we have a lot of interesting things to prove it.
That pretty much sums up the philosophy of everyone in town. For the owners of the town's only restaurant, Area 51 is unquestionably a blessing.
It's been a snowball that we've had a hold of, and the Little Alien made a great name for our place. The thing I think that's so much fun is when somebody comes in and they're struggling with the name of our place, Ollie, and all of a sudden they put it together as the alien. And it just lights people's faces, and it's so much fun.
There's more fun.
Order up, please.
Here you can get a piping hot alien burger made with
freshly ground alien.
what else? To wash it down, how about a bloody alien? Or maybe a beam me up Scotty.
Well, a beam me up Scotty is just something that my wife and I came up with. It's a drink that has Jim Beam and Scott and 7-Up. And voila, we have Beam Me Up Scotty. It's quite tasty.
We'll get you beamed up.
The little alien is ground zero for sightings rumors.
Who knows? There could be anything. I'm either way. I'm not a disbeliever, I guess. But I'd like to see something. We saw one bull all by itself, so we figured it was an alien in disguise. That's what we figured.
If so, the little alien is one of the few places on this planet you can talk about flying saucers without being called crazy.
We have reports from customers and passerbys that report seeing these orange orbs, a very fast-moving light, white light, and some with a bluish cast, some with orange.
Late one wintry night, Joe and Pat claim they had their own otherworldly experience right in the restaurant.
We were the only ones here because it was very nasty outside, and a beam of light came through the center of the back door. It was like a large flashlight. We felt an energy, a presence, and this vanished. Now I looked at my wife, I said, "Did you see what I think I just saw?" And she said, "Yes, I did."
Another must-see in Rachel, Nevada is the Area 51 Research Center just down the road from the alien.
There's a lot of rumors. We try to tell people what people think is going on out here and then show them what is actually fact.
Like Rachel itself, the research center is modest and unpretentious. It's mostly a guy in a trailer listening to a police scanner that broadcasts radio chatter from Area 51. Any little tidbit of information may shed some light on what's going on out there. You never know what they might let slip.
Occasionally, clearance from the base of some kind of secret project. They'll actually announce those sometimes as they fly through the area. And of course, that helps us here too, especially if they're going to come over us. We can get a heads up before that happens.
Half a dozen times a year, Nellis Air Force Base hosts international war games. Competitions called Red Flag.
They call it the most sophisticated, most realistic war games done in the world. Typical day out here, you'll see dogfighting, bombers that go over town. Definitely a lot of military traffic. Not a lot of civilians, it's usually all military. Of course, the American stuff will be the majority. A-10s, F-16s, F-15s. But also, of course, foreign craft, because this is an international war game. You see everything from tornadoes, mirages. Everybody comes out here, French, German, English, Singapore. It's worldwide. So you expect to see just basically any military craft.
For the best view of all this, take a ride out to the Extraterrestrial Highway. Yep, that's the official name.
Rachel is the only community on the Extraterrestrial Highway, and it's been a fun experience for everybody, that not only the people that come here, but for the people that are here on a permanent basis.
The best place to go is to either, if you want to be a ways away and be safe, is right off the highway at the 18-mile marker. There is a very famous mailbox. It used to be a black mailbox, which they actually auctioned off on eBay for several $1,000s. And now there's a white mailbox for a rancher that lives in the center of the valley.
Yeah, there's been a lot of strange stories connected with the mailbox, a lot of conspiracy rumors that It was actually Area 51's mailbox. It's where the aliens would receive their secret messages, or the military would receive classified documents, which that's crazy anyway, because it's just a mailbox alongside the road.
People claim they've seen a lot of peculiar-looking aircraft out here, most recently a large light moving over Tikaboo Valley.
And the people seeing it actually saw engines that were fired off from it. So definitely a terrestrial object, something from the base that was being tested.
I have watched the skies in this area while I've been out here, and one night I did see some rather interesting lights that were in a shape, and it did light up the whole valley. But looking through my binoculars, as the lights disappeared, you could see the tail lights of planes, and it was some new military lighting technology that they were using.
Maybe so, but the question UFO enthusiasts continue to ask is, are all these sightings simply secret military aircraft? We may never know for sure, but there's no proof any of the aircraft took off from somewhere other than Earth. The security at Area 51, the military's secret base in the Nevada desert, is very strict. Employees are under surveillance. Some are taken in and out in buses with blacked-out windows. Enthusiasts like Sean David Morton believe the military surveils the area from nearby Bald Mountain.
We're standing at the border of Area 51 right next to the warning signs, and directly behind me you can see Bald Mountain. And there is a military facility on top of that, which is a surveillance and reconnaissance facility where helicopters actually come and go, and they can spot anything on the land or in the sky from that vantage point.
But those who watch are also being watched. They call them groomies, after Groom Lake, or interceptors, as in people who intercept any scrap of information about the doings at Area 51.
Groomies or interceptors are a group of people who are interested in the application of air power and technology. And for us, there's not a better place that I know of in the world we can really see these applications firsthand.
For some, being a groomie is a hobby. They just like to be in the know about what's going on at Nellis Air Base and Area 51. For others, like Jim Kippen, it's a job. Kippen is a photographer who freelances for various aviation magazines. He cruises Nellis Air Force Base and the perimeter of Area 51 routinely, hoping to get a good shot of the latest super high-tech plane. He goes everywhere with at least one eye on the sky.
It's kind of like fishing. I mean, some days you see things and some days you don't, but there's always something else you want to see, so you keep coming back.
On any given day, visitors might see the whole history of Area 51 flying by. Maybe you'll spot the U-2, the first secret aircraft developed at Area 51 50 years ago. It was an ultralight spy plane capable of flying at very high altitudes.
It was used extensively to spy on Russia and China and other countries, and nobody even knew existed. I think the public first became aware of the U-2 spy plane when Gary Francis Powers was shot down over Russia in the late 50s.
If you don't see the U-2, maybe you'll see one of the other planes developed at Area 51 during the 1960s and 70s. Perhaps the SR-71 Blackbird.
Now, the U-2 was relatively slow, 500 miles an hour maybe. The SR-71 could go Mach 3, Mach 4, and at extraordinary altitudes. They say the U-2 can go maybe 70,000 feet. The SR-71 may be up to 100,000 feet. That's way up there. It included all kinds of new technology,
Not long ago, Lockheed used Area 51 to test the F-117 Nighthawk, the stealth strike fighter. During the Gulf War, the Nighthawk made an impressive debut.
That first attack on Baghdad, Iraq, for example, that was led by the F-117 stealth fighter, and they never saw it coming.
The chance to see planes like this without worrying about getting killed by wayward bombs and bullets is a big part of Area 51's attraction.
Oh, I just like to see them fly. I just hope to see anything.
I've seen some pretty good action. You know, there's a lot of maneuvers and dogfights, and pretty interesting.
I'm particularly interested in seeing the stealth bombers, particularly the B-2, because it's such an odd shape, and it would have such an odd silhouette in the sky, being very black and just its odd shape.
Another big lure for aviation fans and ufologists is getting a sneak peek at an aircraft allegedly in development at Area 51, the Aurora, a super-secret spy plane that may be capable of flying 5,000 miles per hour, 3 times the speed of sound. Unmanned aerial vehicles like those used in Afghanistan can't fly as high or as fast as the Aurora, but Area 51 watchers believe they are the latest aircraft to come from the secret base.
That's pretty neat stuff when you can have a vehicle that sits up there and looks down and sends back a signal to the command headquarters. There's nobody on board. It's a very small target. And you're learning what the other guy is doing while he's doing it. That's quite extraordinary.
But people like photographer Chuck Clark, people who are familiar with the look of the night sky, are seeing flying objects they say they can't explain.
The ones that are normally seen from out in this area, they tend to move around in very sharp, jagged maneuvers, sometimes appearing already up in the sky, shooting off in one direction and then making a V-turn with no deceleration at all. Sometimes they kind of move around like a bumblebee. That's the best way I can describe it. An up and down, side to side motion, you know, very, very erratic. We have nothing, no aircraft, no rocket, nothing can go from a dead stop to, you know, a speed like that and then back to a dead stop in that sort of distance or time frame.
The reports that we get of spectacularly fast flying aircraft that turn on a dime and so on are probably greatly exaggerated. Most of these sightings are made at dusk or at night. It's very hard to tell distance, size, speed. Observers are notoriously biased and subjective. It's very difficult, even if you're a professional observer, to make accurate observations in the dark. So amateurs out there with wild imaginations, I think, cannot be trusted.
I do know that in laboratories, there are strange flying apparatus that's being developed. For example, at Caltech, there's something that looks like a giant dragonfly about this big that moves by flapping its wings, in which engineers have mimicked the way nature works. And so that kind of technology is being developed in laboratory right now.
UFO enthusiasts and scientists agree that much is being developed at Area 51. Is any of it alien in origin? Jim Mars believes some of it is.
I think that a goodly number, perhaps even a majority, of the UFO sightings, particularly in the United States, may indeed be secret test craft. However, it does not explain all of the sightings. And you cannot just throw the baby out with the wash water. You don't say, well, a lot of them come from Area 51 and therefore there's nothing unearthly about this. Simply not the case.
Michael Shermer thinks he has the answer, and he thinks the UFO enthusiasts are wrong.
Because Area 51 is a top secret government facility, we know almost nothing about what's really going on there. And therefore, the imaginations of the ufologists have run wild and turned this into one of the great legends of the past decade.
Everybody agrees that if aliens were visiting Earth, that would be important. There are stories like that. I don't know if any of them are true. It goes into my gray basket, maybe. Not black, not white, maybe. And I'm afraid most of what happens at Area 51 is in my gray basket.
Skeptics insist that UFO sightings are simply new test craft, and that the top secret nature of Area 51 simply lends it an aura of mystery. The top secret base, dubbed Area 51, has become famous for alleged UFO sightings. Since rumors first surfaced that there might be alien beings or spacecraft there, thousands of visitors have come each year hoping to see for themselves. Despite Area 51's notoriety, many other places have had their share of alleged alien encounters too, which is why back in 1951 the federal government set up Project Blue Book. It was intended to investigate all civilian reports of UFOs and discover a cause.
Starting in 1947, the government was confronted with loads of reports of flying saucers, later called UFOs, if you will. And they set up a group, Project Blue Book, to look into this.
To some extent, it was a PR effort. That is, it was a nuisance. The reports of UFOs were annoying to the Air Force, and they just wanted to get it out of the way. They had some real experts, and the experts certainly were able to correctly identify many of the supposedly unidentified flying objects.
In late 1969, Project Blue Book ended, but UFO believers like Jim Mars wonder if the project was even valuable.
What we now know, and which is clear from the documentation, is that when the reports came in, anything that could be easily explained away, oh, it was Venus or swamp gas or ball lightning, that went to Project Blue Book.
I think Project Blue Book, like other government programs to investigate these claims, does produce useful data in the sense of a lot of unusual things happen in this world, and the more information we have to explain it, the better. The fact is, 90 to 95% of all UFO sightings are fully explainable. And the real ufologists, the serious guys, they say the same thing as I do on that. The difference between the skeptics and the believers is that 5 to 10%.
Still, that 5 or 10% adds up to a significant number of stories and claims of UFOs having visited planet Earth.
There literally have been dozens of crashes and crash retrievals.
Robert Dean is a former Army Command Sergeant Major who spent 27 years on active duty until he retired in 1976. Though his claim cannot be verified, he says that during that time he had access to information that convinced him humans have had intimate relationships with several high-technology extraterrestrial civilizations.
The recent estimates are that there could be as many as a dozen, if not more. I've heard estimates that run as high as 100, different groups from different places.
Dean also claims to have seen a number of documents and witnesses that indicated alien spaceships had indeed fallen to Earth.
I lost count. The last time I had known about it, there were at least 18 that I knew of in locations where we had not only retrieved heavily damaged hardware, but we had retrieved little bodies. The crew And some of them were still alive when we retrieved them.
I'm sure that a few military people think that we have retrieved alien bodies, but that's the kind of thing that you would expect would arise, the kind of rumor that would arise inevitably in secret military programs where strange things are going on. They may sincerely believe these stories, but I don't know of any case of anyone who actually convincingly had close contact with a supposed alien body who has ever come forth.
If the government had discovered alien bodies, they would tell us. They would tell the world. This would be the greatest find in the history of civilization. And people like NASA and the military would, of course, use this to increase their budgets. This would be the greatest boon they've ever had.
Regardless, some believers think that the hardware left behind by these high-tech travelers has been successfully reverse engineered at Area 51.
The idea that we back-engineered technologies from aliens for spacecraft or jet aircraft or fiber optics or computers is just silly beyond belief. This is the dumbest thing I have ever heard ufologists come up with. You can track all of these technologies all the way back through the 20th century, step by step. All technology historians know exactly how these things were developed. There was no quantum leap at any point when the technology suddenly got better through some mysterious force.
If we had this kind of alien technology, NASA wouldn't have to spend billions of dollars and take a year to get a spacecraft from the Earth to Mars. We could do it like that. There is no program to do that, to my knowledge. It's taking us years to get to Jupiter and to Saturn with other spacecraft. We wouldn't need that if we had alien technology.
Skeptics remain unconvinced.
There are no UFOs or aliens at Area 51. This is strictly a military top-secret base and nothing more. Get over it, take your imaginations, and go home.
The only thing that seems certain is that whatever is under wraps at Area 51 is of vital importance to the United States. During his first 2 months in office, President George W. Bush extended the restricted status of Area 51 for national security reasons. Whatever they're doing there, it isn't over yet.
Still to come tonight, our movie at 10 is Body Snatchers. But first, more paranormal investigations as we go in search of the ghosts of Belgrave Hall after the break.